how often do you think we should be redoing images? Like, what does it look like if someone, to your point about the actors and actresses come in, they've had their hair changed? In the entrepreneurial world, what about if they've shredded down for summer, or they've put weight on for something, or whatever? Like, how often should we be updating things?
Yeah, I think it's worth revisiting every year, definitely, isn't it? And maybe sooner than that. And also just, thinking about things which and settings and backgrounds that could give you some really good variety, So it's like with a little bit of forethought, it could be that you're, photographed in like, in a bit of an industrial kind of space, or you have some shots done in the City of London area where it's, where there's lots of glass and steel, but you're shot quite early in the morning and there's some cool angles and there's a shallow depth of field. Well, I'm sure you're already getting a picture in your mind's eye, or already that's making some really average looking person look pretty cool. Maybe there's a great shot of them walking away, or maybe there's some really good long lens shots of them, that moment before you look left and right, before you kind of do a little quick run across the road to not go, to make it while the lights go green. There's some great moments there, and they're really interesting shots. Or maybe there's some reflections or looking through, as opposed to this sort of standard, you've got a check shirt on and you're, or a bad blouse, and you're sort of sitting in a Regus serviced office and, slough, looking a bit unhappy or whatever it might be. So I think it's thinking a little bit more outside the box. As I said, looking at putting a value on imagery and realizing that even if you find it, a lot of people's gripe is that they don't enjoy it. Of course, they're like, being in front of the camera is not there. Is not for me. But I think turning that on its head for a minute, and then getting some really cool clothes to wear, and then thinking about a really cool kind of really cool location. It could be that you shoot some great shots of you at Columbia Road Flower Market in London, and they're all out of focus in the background, and it's you laughing, and already they're going to look a lot better than just some really standard kind of shots. Obviously all sector dependent, but I think even for people who are in quite dry sectors, they can still, we can still have a bit of fun and or at least elevate them,
or show some personality.
Yeah, show some personality. Yeah, and if you if you're an entrepreneur listening and you're like, oh God, well, I don't feel, I'm quite introverted. Imagery is really not a big thing for me. Great. Well, okay, fine, but let's bring a bit of the location then to help us. Maybe you're I don't know, maybe you're walking across a bridge in London, or it's shot at a certain time of day. Then we're bringing a lot, if I photographed you this evening at twilight on Albert Bridge, there'll be loads of twinkly lights in the background, and even if it's your idea of hell, I can we can still make some imagery that as I'm scrolling up LinkedIn, I'm like, wow, God, that's a million miles away from a really boring headshot, isn't it?
So absolutely.
So come on, entrepreneurs, think outside the box.
Do something different. Come on. And what I think is really interesting, having come to know you over the last few years, is that you are very good at visualization. And what I mean by that is, it's almost like selling or persuasion. You don't just say something, you say, well, like you just said then, imagine we're on Elbury Bridge and the twinkling lights in the background, and I can start to see it, and I feel myself leaning in going, oh yeah, I could do that. How important has that been in your business, to be able to get someone who's not really into something to go, oh, I can picture myself taking that amazing picture, and then they want to do it, and it sort of comes towards you and makes everything easier, I'm imagining.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think it's just helping them to understand what the creative is, and just sort of explaining it a bit more, and explaining how good it would be. So yeah, I guess I've sort of had to become a tiny bit of a storyteller by default. But I think again back to that just sort of like learned behaviour. I've realised that if I'm doing that, then I get a better result. So I'm always bringing them over to the monitor where I've got the mood board that we spoke about earlier. I've got that on screen, and then I'm explaining to them what each shot will look like. Maybe sometimes they're like, oh well, I hate the red sofa, and I'm like, okay, no problem. Well, we'll swap that out for something else. Quickly get the blue chair in. How about if we change for the blue? Oh yeah, I don't mind the blue chair. Okay, great. So there's sometimes a bit of bartering, but yeah, exactly. I guess I'm kind of I'm light-hearted enough to be able to just sort of keep it light as we go, which it also helps for a good result.
Would you describe yourself as a perfectionist?
Yes, I think I am a perfectionist. I want a really good result, and I think, as I said to you earlier, just as I'm about to press the button, sometimes I'm like, how can we make this better? Sometimes I'm like, great, Freddie, you look brilliant there. Okay, just, move your arm. Hang on a second, no. I think I can make this better, Freddie. Let's go outside into the hallway, because the lift doors are amazing. They're really beaten up. The lift looks like it's 90 years old. We can do better than this. Let's go now. Let's go to the lift door. Yeah. My assistant will know exactly what's going on, that I've changed everything at the last minute, which I do 30% of the time. She'll unscrew the light really quickly, change it for a battery one, and run outside, and you'll be against the lift doors. She'll be holding the light above you. And I knew we could do better. And so it's like, for me, it's a little bit like everything all coming together at a certain amount of time. I feel like a little bit like a photo shoot is like sand slipping through my fingers. I've got a certain amount of time to make this magic happen, right? And I ramp up myself, in the way I'm operating, as we're coming to the Ferrari, to make sure I'm getting enough variation. Quick, if we got the lift shot, just hold the black velvet behind Freddie really quickly. Yeah. Bang, bang, bang. Great, we got a black velvet shot of him as well. Yeah. I'm like, I will, we'll make all that happen. It's like this crescendo, and then we're done. And I'd be really annoyed with myself if I just photographed you against the brick wall. I knew we could do better, because on my way up here, I noticed the lift door was good, and I didn't have a chance to recce it. But we can do better than this. Let's get out there. I
love that saying. I know I can do better. That's such a good way of doing it. And also, like, if I was in a photo shoot with you and people were rushing around and it wasn't chaotic, but they're doing stuff quickly, I would feel so respected. No one's walking slowly and not quite doing stuff. I'd feel like, well, this guy's he's got it all working like an orchestra. It's really exciting, but it's also respectful.
Yeah, and it's back to control, like we spoke about earlier, isn't it? I think it's just about being in control, And I think, you and I both, done some work on, entrepreneurial work ourselves. And I think that's really helped me a lot as well. I'd kind of, I'd been already a working photographer 15 years and thought I haven't really kind of reinvested in learning myself much about, being an entrepreneur. And I think that's had a big effect on the way that I run the business as well,
I completely agree. What would you say is something that most people would never guess about working in the world of photography?
Most people would never guess. I think sometimes people think, oh my God, how many of these pictures are you going to use? It's like click, 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 click. They're like, are we done? I'm like, whoa, slow down. Sometimes people blink a lot, or I can see they're nervous. Sometimes the whole of the first setup is kiboshed. So we decided you were going to be in the blue chair to start with, and you've turned up and you've really preoccupied, and then you're trying to kind of switch it on and interact with me, and I notice that you're preoccupied, and you're just, and then like your phone goes and you look across to your agent and say, don't worry, I'll deal with that in a minute, and then you're back to me again, and I can just see that that's not really kind of working. So we scrap that, and then
focus is a big thing.
Focus is a big thing. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so not to bring you down at all, but if people don't follow Dan on Instagram, you're missing out, because the pictures are ridiculous. And I know, because I ask you on almost every single one, they're done with an iPhone. A lot of these ones, obviously not the front cover stuff, but your ones that are on your stories and your posts are iPhone. How on earth are you getting these shots with an iPhone? For a founder listening who's using an iPhone, whatever it might be, how are you doing it? What are you looking at that people aren't doing?
Oh well, thank you very much. I don't do a massive amount. I do. I often use portrait mode.
Okay.
And then I also go into. There's some little settings like what are they called? I don't know what they're called.
He's that good. You don't even know what it is.
It's like there's one called. It's called. Oh my God. Is it called Sunny Warm or something? What are they called when they? Sorry, you'll have to
the filters, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, the filters across. Yeah.
Sorry, I'll start again.
That's fine. You're good.
Okay. Yeah, the filters across, and there's Vivid Warm.
Vivid Warm. That's what it is.
Vivid Warm. But you need to dial it back down. Don't tell anyone, by the way. This is just
cut this bit out.
No. You could use it. Vivid Warm, but then then I dial it back down, and then I play around with it just a little bit. And I'm doing the same, by the way, on my main shoots, and I'm just using a different program to do it. So Capture One, which is the program that we use for that, I'm doing the same thing. So I open up the picture and I'm just looking at it, and so I will go to on the iPhone after I've taken it. predominantly in portrait mode, I would then go to vivid warm, but then dial that back down a bit, and then I would sometimes add a bit more black to it, and then I go to the sharpen, I add a little bit of sharpen to it, and then I nearly always vignette it, which is darken the edges a little bit, and those few things seem to make it a little bit more.
But you also you wouldn't shoot a massive thing. Yours are always quite zoomed in. Like you're very specific on the thing that you're taking a shot of, which I always think people do wrong. You know, they take a picture of, like, we're in the studio, right? So there's some shelves behind us. Someone will just take a picture of Dan with the shelves, whereas you might go right into the mic and half of your face or something, and then you'd edited it. So even those, is that rule of thirds? I don't even know. There's some elements there that are clever.
It's certainly not rule of thirds. No, I think it's just, I think it's just the angle you choose, right? Trying to make it a bit more interesting, you know. So maybe walking back further away from your subject in portrait mode, but then going 2 times portrait mode, so that you're getting that kind of telephoto kind of effect. So often that kind of thing. Yeah.
These are the tips that all the founders need when they're doing portraits on their own.
Well, yeah, exactly. Get it on a little tripod, try portrait mode, you know. Also think about where the light's coming from, you know. You don't want it to be, you don't want this horrible cross sunlight coming across your face with squinty eyes. So you want to be, you know, looking, you also don't want to be having the bright sunlight right in your eyes either. So ideally you'd have the sun on your back, I think, as long as you're not getting any flare in your lens.
So this is the thing. As soon as someone brings a camera out, there's always someone that goes, well, we need to face this way because the sun's from there, and everyone's like, oh, no, I can't see, I can't open my eyes.
Exactly, that's so true. Yeah, looking for a little shaded bit or something to be on.
Exactly, a lid.